All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Heck, Goose, and Gabe. The big announcement. In this episode, the crew delivers the most important message in Rotated Views podcast history and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from JoyBell and Craig D. Lounsbrough. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, gentlemen. All right, so obviously we're recording this titled The Big Announcement. I feel like Goose is still not here.
Yes,
so we are recording live from Miguel's Riverside Barbershop, 105 Market Street, Bristol, PA, 19007. Check him out. Download the app. He has two other barbers, Romeo and Angelo, that also are fantastic at what they do. Make sure you do the dang thing. Right behind us somewhere, oh my gosh, we got these things all over the place. They're not even together. I have no idea what's going on. But the Blessed Lifestyle brand right behind us and the Rotated Views podcast. So, with that being said, the big announcement. We're finally here, everyone. Are you guys ready?
Drum roll, please.
3, 2, 1. All right. What's the big announcement? Here it is. Gabe, you say it.
It's over. So much enthusiasm behind that.
Finito!
The finale.
All right. We're closing the doors for the Rotated Views podcast after 7 years. You, sir, you, ma'am, you heard correct. After much reflection and consideration, we have decided to bring the show to a close. We all agree we have successfully completed our mission. It's 100% organic with no exterior threat or pressure to make the decision. Since 2016, this project has been a staple in our lives that should undoubtedly be labeled the GOAT. We ranked multiple times in the top 10 podcasts in our category and even reached the feat of number 1. From the positive impact we had on our community, the hundreds of guests we featured, all the way down to the camaraderie we have built, the experience has been gratifying to say the least. We have seen other podcast projects come and go, but the Rotated Views podcast stood strong. We started at a time when podcasts were somewhat a new thing, to now popularity has risen to an all-time high. The reason for this decision is simple: total fulfillment. We genuinely feel now is the right time for closure. We feel proud of the result and truly satisfied with the project. The decision genuinely feels divinely orchestrated. The next show will be the final show, ending perfectly on episode 333 and to be recorded on April 7th of the 7th year in business. These announcements usually come with a heavy heart, but for the crew, it comes with a happy heart. Creating and producing this podcast has been a wonderful experience, and we are grateful for the opportunity to have shared our thoughts and ideas with all of you. I truly appreciated your support and feedback throughout the journey, and I will always treasure the memories and experiences we shared together. All right. Just kidding, everyone. No, I'm not. No, there you go.
7 more years.
7 more years coming your way!
This was just season 1.
April Fools. No, but in all seriousness, that's it. That's a wrap. I feel extremely satisfied, extremely fulfilled. If anyone knows the Bristol borough, the town we grew up in Bristol, Pennsylvania, knows it's a small town, and we quite literally interviewed the majority of the small businesses around here, including my brother's barbershop, friends, family, close, business associates. I mean, everyone literally even under the sun.
Surrounding areas.
From the surrounding areas, all the way over to California, down to Florida, and everything else in between. It's just been a spectacular ride. I genuinely, I say this, I just got chills. I truly feel fulfilled. I feel that the Rotated Views podcast as a project is complete.
Yeah.
I feel that we have nothing else to do after this, and everything we've done prior it's perfect. It really truly is. That does not mean that we're done with projects, right? It just means the Rotated Views podcast is a done deal.
Because what started as us just in your spare bedroom, I guess, or spare office, just talking to each other, has evolved way beyond that. So that's where that's what.
Well, I mean, and it started way before that as well, right? It started out in the backyards, Saturday nights, just bullcrap and hanging out, smoking cigars and just shooting the nonsense that we do. And we're like, this guy comes out with the idea. He's like, yo, we could record us. And take it from there and look.
As a product,
We've evolved long ways.
What's crazy is like we're all still like it's wild. Me and Gabe had this like one-on-one conversation. It's like my two brothers and Gabe, like legitimately, voluntarily show up every single week to record the Rotated Views podcast. That's what's wild to me. Like, no one here is getting paid. No one here is, feels that they have to. It's genuinely people coming, I'm going to be there. Like today, like Goose, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be late, but I'm going to be there. So it's still the want. And it's funny because we had these conversations and we were still, up until like a week or two ago, talking about how we can make improvements and how we can, and it just like, it's just one of those things that when you start these things, you just don't know, what they could turn into, right? This was just a promise. Right? After we decided to make a podcast, the promise to me and Gabe made to each other was 10 episodes. And, we're literally 300 plus episodes. The final episode we recorded on April 7th. It's going to be more of a celebration. After 7 years. So 7 years we've been, quote, feeding the audience with the craziest content from our own family members all the way to multi-millionaire business owners and everything else in between. It's been absolutely exciting. I say it with a smile because honestly, I genuinely feel fulfilled. There's no way you can tell me like you set out a goal of 10 episodes and we're at 300 plus episodes, 330 plus episodes. And we don't record every day. We don't record twice a week. We record officially once every week. There are some gaps in between there for holidays and things like that, what have you. But for 7 straight years, we're just pumping out content. We even had, and everybody who we featured has given back positive feedback. And was willing to come back on for a second time or whatever. And we've had people on multiple times just because the conversation was so
we had people that aged 94 years old. I just saw the guy on Sunday.
That's right.
And he was like, you guys have something great going on there. You guys, the shop, the podcast, he said, that was awesome stuff. Like he was just 94 years old. He was super excited.
I think James here featured when he was like 3.
I
So
mean, that makes sense.
We have 90 years and ages, in between as guests. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So there was no specifics. It was whatever we got and made it happen. We got material off of it.
I definitely prided myself in providing family-friendly stuff, right? So everyone out there in the world, you guys all know that there's a ton of content. And some people could say, you're not unique. You came out with just basic stuff. If you go and listen, I promise you, the content that you listen to is worth the time investment. And I guarantee you're going to learn something. And the whole thing was that we wanted to make it family friendly. So if you were somewhat new to the podcast, there's a bunch in there where I explain this. But what happened was... back in 14, I guess. 14, 15. I was driving I worked in Philly at the time, and I was driving into work. And a decent commute, about 35 minutes, 40 minutes into work. And I would listen to like the whatever 10 podcasts that were out at the time. And just had them on rotation. And they were fantastic. The thing was with podcasts, the ones that I was listening to were more than an hour long. They're about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, right? Okay. I would go in to work, drive into work, listening to the podcast, right? And coming out, wanting to finish listening to the podcast. The problem was on the way out, around the corner, maybe about 5 miles to 10 miles, probably 5 miles really, away from my job was my son's daycare. My wife worked there, but she went in late to stay late type of thing, so then I can go in early to leave early to grab, pick James up and then go home. So I would pick James up to go home, and obviously he was in the car. So I would have to change the channel because these guys weren't saying nothing malicious or anything, whatever. They were just cursing their brains off.
Yeah.
And even though it was motivating and, not the curse words, but like the content itself was motivating to me, I couldn't do it. I couldn't listen to it. So, and it happened enough times that was like, man, if I ever come up with a podcast, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be where there's no foul language.
Yeah. Right.
And it, for the most part, be family friendly. So that's what we did. And that's what we produced for 7 years. And yeah, they'll probably find an episode here and there. So you can chop this up and make it what you want. Listen, it's not perfect. And you might find an episode here and there. But what I guarantee you is you're not going to hear a curse. And if you heard one, it was definitely a slip up and something that was not intentionally supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So for the record, Gabe would go out because it wasn't, when you feature a guest, that's not just because that's our belief. That doesn't mean it's everyone's belief.
Yeah.
And so the way, some people were just naturally communicate, some things will fly out. So it's harder than you think.
Yeah.
And we stayed true to that though.
And there was a couple times where it's funny. It was like that. There was 2 episodes specifically that was like, one was heavily like.
One was
heavily
atrocious.
Edited. Yeah, that was heavily edited. But there was one that was not as bad. It was like you said, it was like a casual conversation, just how you talk.
Yeah.
And somebody we know had messaged me. It's like, you couldn't even tell at all. Like it sounded so natural. It was like I was able to blend it enough where you couldn't even tell.
It was a clean mix.
Yeah.
So it was just funny, like how that even we kept it as close to that statement as possible.
Yeah, and so we might not have had the most graphically edited, futuristic looking things, but I'll tell you right now, it's a job. It's in this day and age, there's some effort there.
Sure.
Seriously, where you gotta give props where props are due, and I'm promising you right now, come up with a podcast and keep it clean. That's
an anomaly
with guests.
days.
With guests, I'm saying like you yourself could probably do it, but I'm saying with guests who don't necessarily share that. So it's definitely interesting. And so it's funny too because when we're thinking about this and we're talking about closing things out, I had a conversation with myself. Really, I prayed about it. I talked to my wife, and then I had Gabe come over. Me and Gabe talked about it. And then last Monday actually, had Goose and Heck and Gabe, all of us smoking cigars, back from the original good old days type thing. We talked about it. Everyone was just like, yeah. It was like the most, it was like not the easiest decision. It was like the most easiest.
It was genuine too, how we all felt about it. Like no one was like bitter or anything. It was like everything made sense. Like you said, it was a success that we started, and there was nothing bitter about it.
It seems like it's coming to a proper, at least this leg of what we're doing seems to come to a proper conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm telling you guys, I promise you, it's just right. So then it made me think, I'm like, oh man, I know we're going to get people, I know why they're closing shop. All right, so I looked up 5 reasons to end a podcast. Time constraints. If you're finding it difficult to keep up with the demands of producing a podcast, it might be time to consider ending it. We have no time constraints.
No,
right?
At all.
We literally, and what's funny is everyone here has multiple other things going on, projects going on, family things going on, work things going on. When the day doesn't line up for all of us, we just literally move the day.
Yeah.
Like we move from Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday, Wednesday to Monday, whatever it is, whatever it takes, because we're going to get the content out of there.
And we've been accommodating for even guests and everything too. It's like we've done Sundays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays,
we've done weekends, we've done, and listen, our schedules are our priority. There's guests out there, and if you're listening, you know this is true. If you haven't been on the show, where you could only do a specific time or day or whatever, and we tried. It wasn't, that was like we don't necessarily want people on our podcast, it was like we stay true to our schedule.
Yeah.
But we were flexible.
Yeah.
As much as we can, as much as we could. Financial difficulties. If your podcast is not generating enough revenue to cover your expense, it may be time to consider ending. All of our expenses are covered. There was no financial difficulties here. Believe me, there's no financial difficulties here. In fact, every year as we progress, we've kept upgrading equipment, upgrading applications, what have you. So that's out of the window. Difficulty finding guests. If you're finding it hard to find new and interesting guests to interview on your podcast, it may be time to wrap things up. Like I mentioned, I'm not going to, but I can show you Instagram DMs of people wanting to be a guest and just whatever. We're in the middle of negotiating, scheduling, and whatever. And then I still reach out and say, hey, as of the last week, because I didn't want to put it out there just yet. So I was sort of waiting to respond, and now I'm responding back, hey, this is what's happening. I showed Gabe last week I showed 4 guests, so we had 3 potentials that were in getting ready to rock and roll. 1 canceled on us or asked for a reschedule because things just whatever happened, and multiple on both Facebook Messenger and Instagram, whatever they call it, direct message, of inboxes of people interested in being guests. So anyway, the guest thing was not, but there is a thing to this. Not just because someone reached out to us doesn't mean they're going to be the right fit. So we also had a bunch of people who reached out to us, and it was just did not make sense on any level.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we just said yes to everything.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, I think we as much as we said yes is how much we said no. I think it was more of a 50-50 blend because of the content we're trying to bring and the inspiring, motivational messages. And the majority of, and if you guys go back 300 plus episodes, the majority of what we recorded was featuring a person, small business, product or service just launching or have launched, looking to market themselves. We're creating their progress, their success. We talk about how they get started, what motivates them. Everything was inspiring messages. So
and it went along with the theme what we started with was having inspiring messages among us.
Yeah.
It just evolved into
it
having
all just
other
stayed
people talk
true.
about.
It never went off subject.
And if you had a podcast, and I'm talking okay, we've been doing this for 7 years, how not difficult, but it takes a lot to coordinate having a guest on top of all that. So even if I had 20 in the quote hopper, for one to actually manifest into a guest, it takes a lot of work. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work. If you have a podcast, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of no-shows, excuses, just everything else in between. And then you have the people who are straight up and show up, right? And then they keep to their word. So
we even went on location to some places.
Yeah. Several
times. We went on location, had the podcast in their vicinity. Yeah. And that always worked out.
Some houses, businesses, whatever was appropriate for that time. Actually, it was whatever truly was appropriate for that guest.
Right.
If it was at their place of business, sometimes their home was their place of business, and it made sense. And then we were on the scene because of what they did. It was pretty cool visual effect.
Right. To be there.
To it all. Lack of growth. If your podcast is not growing in terms of listenership or revenue, it may be time to consider ending it. Well, our listenership went up. That's why I got this proof of downloads. This is straight from our source. Put it this way. In 2016, we had 45,000 plays. Just going to go. Every year it went up. I think 1 year, 2018 was crazy. And then it went to 70-something, 100 plus. Dropped down to 77. That was the pandemic.
Yes,
but that was I think everybody got hit there. 2021, 90. And in 2022, okay, we're 3 months into 2023. So in 2022 is our biggest year yet with 164,000 plays. And then In 2023, 2.5 months, 49,000. So in 2016, total for the year is 45. In 2 months, we have 49. So
2 months of 2023.
Yes. So yeah, literally growing every year. Listenership, and that's just from one source. That's not all of our. That's not total. We have like 5 different sources to get numbers from. So the other thing was what? Oh, running out of topics. If you're struggling to come up with new, fresh content, guys, like I said, this is like endless. To inspire and motivate people, it's endless. But how we wanted to do it was give you sort of like a complete thing. And this is the point of us stopping exactly where we are. Goose has joined us. This is the point of stopping exactly where we are, though, is you're sort of want to stop where we're like, dude, we're at the top right now. Our, like, what we're doing right here. Yeah. There's the highest listenership, the highest viewership. We have multiple modalities from YouTube and every other medium in between. We've had the most consistent, I guess, listenership or downloads on a monthly basis. Yeah. Because sometimes it's weird, depending on, like, if you had like a guest who was really good at marketing, you can see that they had like a listenership themselves. Right. You could see that month was skyrocketing. Yeah. And you're like, oh man. So yeah, I mean, so there's always that, but it's truly endless. You just don't want to get to a point where you stop. Everyone knows you stopped because you fell off. We wanted to stop at a good time. It was at 100% natural. In fact, it aligned so much that it's ending on. Everyone knows I'm into numbers and numerology. It literally is going to end on 333 on the 7th year. We're going to record it on April 7th, like just a lineup, because we wanted to end on a Friday because we want for it to be more of a celebration. Because if you've been with us since day one, and shout out to the day ones if you have been, we record on Mondays or Tuesday, beginning of the week, essentially.
Right. Yep.
With that being said, at this time, I definitely just want to thank all of our guests. So shout out to everyone who believed in the project, who gave us the opportunity to interview you and to showcase your service and product, and your story. It was an absolute pleasure, an honor to have every single one of you be part of this project. It's kind of crazy to keep saying 7 years, but I'm just going to keep saying it because it's like a wild thing to say. Think about it. A lot of people don't even stick with one job for that long. Sure. A single job, right, or a single company, let alone, like, we did a project on our own voluntarily for 7 years.
Yeah.
And sort of, I honestly wanted to, which we did start obviously on a good note, and I wanted to end on a good note. Yeah. And like, it's hard to describe, but if you've been there in life and you just know. That's the whole. I really can't describe any of it. But I honestly feel like it's perfect. I feel fulfilled. I feel satisfied. Again, we're not done with producing content, but the Rotated Views podcast as a project is closing doors. All right, so let's just go around the horn really quick. I mean, it doesn't have to be really quick, but just around the horn to see just quick, 1 or 2 reflections on the decision. So, Heck, we'll start with you.
I'm glad for the opportunity. Like, it started out as, like we said earlier, it just started out as hanging out in the backyard at Jim's house, and it turned into something amazing, building these relationships with people and getting to know these people in their businesses and what they do in their daily lives, and allowing, like Jim said, allowing us to interview them and stuff. It was just an amazing piece. Like, the project altogether was phenomenal. Like, you couldn't go wrong. Like, we've gained so much knowledge from everyone, from each other, like just the bond that we got from each other and stuff like that. It's definitely like they call it true brotherhood, like what we created, and it's definitely freaking awesome.
Goose?
Yeah, dude. So this experience has been pretty crazy. Like, we've all kind of, and we're ending off successfully. It was a little roller coaster ride. We had our ups and downs, like any business or anything that you guys put together. But like, I just want to thank Jim for the opportunity of hosting this for 7 straight years.
Yeah.
Keeping us intact with the itineraries and like keeping everything. Honestly, just you're the mold of this whole thing. So honestly, if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be as long, or keep like your consistency and your persistence of this whole project is what like kind of kept us here. So thanks to you. Thanks for Gabe with the sound, visual, audio, like everything. Heck with the social media, keeping all that, the posts and stuff. Dude, it's not easy. Like people think, oh, you could do this, do that. Like, and like Heck's posting stuff, but we're like chiming in. We're like, yo, we forgot this. Or same thing with Gabe putting it out on the, out like on iTunes and other stuff. And like we're checking and Heck's checking. It was like, yo, it didn't come on. Like it's not perfect. So it does take the whole team together to make this all happen. When we first started, we're in Jim's office, and then we grew. Now we're in a barbershop with plenty of space, and it just like, dude, just a growth of like a unity of us four. There was like people that came off and on throughout this journey, but like, and no lie, like some of the guests we had were like customers of mine. They sat in this chair and like talked, and there's things that I never even knew, and they were clients of mine for years, right? So they opened up and like they kind of told their vulnerable. They opened up, told their life stories or whatever, and like they're it's I don't know. I learned a lot from a lot of people that I thought I knew, and then like I said, this team, like the Rotative Views podcast, like dude, this unity like brought us closer. We were already closer. We're brothers. Gabe's like our brother, like at this point, right? But it like brought us closer. Like now, like I know who I can trust for what thing, you know? Like, dude, for 7 straight years. I mean, obviously, like I missed a couple episodes here and there due to other prior engagements, and all of us too. But we freaking made it work. Yeah. So like, this might not be the last project, but like to see this kind of end, it's like it's a bittersweet, you know. Like it was like our ritual every Monday. We started off on Tuesdays, now we started doing on Mondays, and as the company itself was growing, our families were growing. So Jim was running around with his kids playing baseball. Heck was running around with his kids. Me and my daughter, and like Gabe has personal stuff. So it's like it's starting to like. We're growing in other ways too, so like to see this kind of end, it's like, it sucks, but it's like it has its own thing. Like I said, I don't think this is the end of us 4 hour journey, but this is the end of
the Rotative Views.
The Rotative Views, yeah.
I love it, Gabe.
So yeah, it's crazy because like
it is crazy.
Like going from those conversations of just figuring it out, like I mean, like heck, I've been, I guess, the most technologically like understanding of like all this stuff, and I had no understanding of any kind of sound, whatever you call it, engineering and all that stuff too. And it's like to now being able to edit videos and stuff too, but let alone the fact that we started here, like we made a promise to do this and keep it going. Like me and you always the constants, like if people couldn't make it, whatever, me and you always made a point to go to it, and even in that first year of like. Even if we, we had a couple of days off, like me and you always made up those other episodes and all that stuff too. And it's like, and then being able to, when we evolved past just the 4 of us to actually invite, having guests, and then making those connections of being invited out to events.
That's right.
Going out to, actual, like people actually wanting us to be there, to actually like saying that we made an impact on them when we're like being there, having to be able to, support somebody else making an impact. And just the fact that like us having this, a much bigger camaraderie that we ever had before. Because obviously it was always me and you, and like I always with these guys was like seeing each other on a weekly basis. Yeah. It's just like it's just brought that to a other level that like that I don't know how if this didn't happen, how like I don't understand how that wouldn't be. I don't know. It's like it's weird to think like if that didn't happen, like what would it be?
What would life be?
What would life be? Yeah.
And for the fact we have banners, we have apparel and stuff. So like how much has grown beyond just us wanting to talk to each other and record it and see what happens from there to like
put it out there.
What it is
even
now.
to have the balls to say, just to put it out there, to have other people listen to us. Like you gotta have the courage to do it. And we made it happen. Like you guys started it and 100% supported the whole thing.
And it's like coming from the beginning, it's like I said, like I never did this before. It's like the first episodes or like were terrible. Like they didn't go back anyway. But even like editing the first episode that actually came out, I remember sitting there for like literally like 6 hours trying to edit. It was probably barely a half hour, like, and it was like ridiculous. It was that was like what you call shit at work. It was like I don't know what you call it, but it's like it's just funny.
Labor of love, man.
100%. It was like, and we all had the passion, and still wanting to do this, like you said, 7 years later. It's been an amazing journey for this part of it. So it's like it's crazy. It's like see this one and see where we go from here.
It's absolutely special. I'm telling you, this is going to be one of those things where we're going to be like, whatever, like a year from now, and not even just as you reflect over the next month or several weeks from now, we're gonna think, you're gonna see how much truly this had an impact on the lives of people around you, yourself, the discipline that this generated out of all of us, whether it was content creation or the challenges we challenge each other on, it just made each of us better. And Gabe, that was a great point with the connections, and Goose sort of alluded to it, but like we're out places and then getting recognized for the podcast, and then from that getting invited to places, events, and things like that. It's just kind of wild. And you don't even know who's listening. Yeah. I still say the classic story of like 2 years in, and one of our aunts comes up to us at a cookout or something, and says telling us they love the show. I'm like looking around like, what are you talking about?
Listen to it.
It's just wild. And all the way through, getting the Blessed Lifestyle brand sort of involved, and seeing everyone whose lives that touched, and everyone who had a part in that. And it's like this whole thing, the growth that I feel like we all endure. I promise you, I feel like we have not even really thought about it until it's all over, and then it's done, and you hit stop on that thing, you're going to think about driving home. It's going to hit you in the craziest places. Years from now, I promise you, something from the Rotated Views podcast is going to pop up.
Yeah, it's so funny because like you said, with like people that you didn't think were listening or whatever. I had a customer in my chair, like this person, I don't even have a close like relationship with this person. And then he's like sits in the chair. He's like, "Yo, so how was your challenge?" I'm like, "Oh, it was good." He's like, "How was it? Was it the social media thing? How did that go?" I'm like, "Listen," I'm like, "Wait, how does this dude?" And he doesn't come like often, so it was like a month prior before he even came. I was like, and I kind of kept it going. He's like. And he said, "Yeah, I listened to he goes, you posted one time." And he goes, "I locked in, I tuned into it, and the Rotated Views, I listened to it all the time." And it was like the most random thing. And then in the mornings, I like get ready for work. I take the trash out, and I'm at my house, and I see our cousin Jennifer Cuevas. And every morning, I guess the time she walks the dog. She does stuff for her morning exercise, and she'll walk by and she'll show me her phone, like lift up her phone, and it's the Rotated Views logo. So she has her headset on. She's exercising and she's listening to the podcast. So it's like she didn't even have to say anything. She just waved and pulled out her phone. It was like and just kept it moving. There was like no verbiage in between, but I knew what she was doing. Yeah, it's like so crazy.
Speaking of which, shout out to Manny, who was part of the crew for a little bit there too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's so crazy. It's like, and that's just people that actually said stuff to me. I don't even know who.
Yeah. The silent people who
just that's the thing. That's what's great, and it still happens on a regular basis with the Blessed Lifestyle stuff. Is like you see somebody walking across the street or someone like in the mall or wherever with your stuff on. Dude, that's what you visually see. Like you could see this, right? Yeah. Imagine all the people who just listen to this in their car and don't say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. They love it and they just whatever. They're just not really,
Just
they enjoy the content, keep it moving.
Exactly.
Dude, it was like 2 summers ago, or maybe like last summer actually. A good friend of ours who he was part of the podcast like at one point, but like in the beginning, like literally years ago, and he was talking about a recent podcast. I'm like, "You still listen?" He goes, he's like, "I literally look." He's like, "It sounds sad because I grew up with you guys, but I listen every week. Like I can't wait for the next thing." He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "I just enjoy it. It's the timing's just right. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's just enough."
Yep.
He's like, you feed us with the content. I love it, and it's not too much. It's only once a week, so it's like something to actually look forward to.
Yeah.
Something small, but significant. All right. So in saying all of that, what if someone were to, I guess, come to you and say, I want to start a podcast, what's one thing I should look out for, or one piece of advice you would give? We'll go around the horn again. So, Heck, what do you think? If someone wanted to start a podcast after 7 years?
7 years. I mean, content is key.
Yeah.
Always make sure you have a good subject matter. Thanks to Jim. He always had something going on, and even like the quote of the day or whatever, always related to what the content was. Yeah. So always have something good that's going to grab people's interest. Yeah. You know, like even if you don't think it may grab someone's interest, but you know it's a subject that's that people know about. Put it together and then review it and then go out there. You gotta give it the shot. You can't just not give it the shot. So I'd say content.
Goose.
Be consistent. Stay consistent with like we did every week, every Monday. We recorded it. We're consistent with it. So it's like the hardest thing to maintain. The hardest thing to do is to maintain something.
Yeah.
So, and to try to maintain it, you got to be consistent with what you do. So it's like just stay consistent with. Just set a goal, set a time, set whatever. If you want to do it weekly, like every other day, every day, whatever. But you got to be consistent with it. And I think that's one of the good keys of keeping a podcast going.
I love it, Gabe.
And kind of along with you guys, it's like everything else is just you guys start doing it. Because if you feel like you have a voice out there that you want to put out there, it's like you just got to start recording. Cause even when we first started, like your phones are advanced enough, you can even record there. Like there's ways.
Right.
To
Absolutely.
There's and things have gotten much simpler in terms of even uploading to like the portals and stuff too. Like just to start doing it, like you can figure out there's lots of easy ways to just have it out there that you can just do. And then like kind of like you said, as long as you're passionate about the subject matter you're talking about, somebody will gravitate towards that. Right. So that's the important thing is like have something that you know you want to talk about, and somebody will want to listen to you talk about the same thing. Because there's always a sense of community. That's what we've essentially built up here is a sense of community along with the subject matter of trying to just build up other people around the literal community along with the community of the topic you want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is not the point I was going to say, but you raised another good point. I just want to highlight it really quick. Don't get overwhelmed with the equipment or the stuff that you need. Get started with what you have. Start with what you have, and then you could build. Like the equipment that we have now, of course, we're up until like 2 weeks ago, we're talking about upgrading and everything. But this is we bought one piece of equipment at a time. Yeah. Started off with very low end things, and now we have some pretty cool stuff. So
this is a result of 7 years later. So
yeah.
And even then, we didn't go as far as beyond as we wanted to at times. But
yeah, for sure. But for me, is be a leader. Be a leader, even if it's just to yourself. And part of that is being organized, because without being an organized leader, it's hard for people to follow. It's hard for people to get behind you and rally behind you if you're disorganized and you don't know where you're going. Honestly, this sounds like corny. My whole thing was a one pager. I had to put this on 2 pages this episode because I had like the front message, a top message I wanted to, or just destroy your margins and be like,
I got it to one
and
page,
still get it at 1 page. But honestly, my secret to success on that was literally keep it to 1 page, because it's keeping it simple and it just keeps you organized. You know where you're going. It literally has the structure of the entire podcast all on 1 page. If you sort of draw a blank during the interview, you have all the questions there. And again, it was just a framework and sort of a way to build off the conversation. We actually prefer the conversation to take its natural course and just keep talking and let the questions sort of rip off that. But if things get slow, you always have this to ask the questions, and then once sort of you find like the dead spots, bang, you go on to the next segment of the podcast.
And I give you 1,000 props for that, because a couple times you had me do it, it was like a disaster. I'm like, no, you can continue that, Jim.
All right. So with that being said, obviously we're gonna have one final episode. It's gonna literally be titled "The Final Show," and it'll end on episode 333. But with that being said, what's the best way listeners can connect with you? Gabe, we'll start with you. So outside of the podcast, I guess, is what this question is.
I'm not a big poster, obviously, but...
Send me snail mail.
Exactly. There you go. Write me a letter. I have a P.O. box. No, I don't.
P.O. box.
So, I mean, I have Instagram and stuff, too. I mean, I do respond to messages, but I don't
Y'all
post very
Instagram?
well.
Hit me up on the ground.
Hit it up the ground.
Yeah, y'all.
So, I mean, G Rivera 1183, if you want to write me a message there or see what these guys posted me into.
Heck.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I don't even know what my handle is. Hector Velez. On Instagram, it's Velez709. If you want to hit me up on Instagram, you can message me. That's pretty much it.
Goose. He's looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Y'all got
He's
Instagram?
looking for his MySpace account.
Add me on the ground.
My MySpace account is just hit me up on the barbershop account. That's like easiest. You can see obviously what we got going on at the barbershop. It's Miguel's _ Riverside Barbershop. I do have a personal one, but it's the business one is the one I kind of pay more attention to. And just hit me up if you have any questions, or just say what's up and just keep it going. If you want a haircut, you can make your appointment on there as well. But that's it.
For me, it's pretty simple. Mr. Jimmylee at Mr. Jimmylee Velez on Instagram. At Blessed Life BL3 SSED Life LIFE on Instagram, and at Rotated Views on Instagram. You could find all the same handles on Facebook as well. And Blessed Everything, I think, on every other social media account. All right, we're going to do the huge. We like to wrap up with quotes, and the first one is by JoyBell. Ends are not bad things. There just means that something else is about to begin. And there are many things that don't really end anyway. They just begin again in a new way. Ends are not bad, and many ends aren't really an ending. Some things are never ending. And then the second one by Craig D. Lounsbrough. A sunset is nothing more and nothing less than the backside of a sunrise. The big announcement in this episode, the crew delivers the most important message in Rotated Views podcast history. We wrap the episode up with quotes from JoyBell and Craig D. Lounsbrough. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.